Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Firaz Jamil. I'm a third year medical student at the University of Cambridge. In this video, I'm going to tell you guys a bit about my experience with the UCAT Abstract Reasoning subtest and some of the advice I have for you guys so you can maximize your scores. So personally, I definitely found this to be the hardest section of the UCAT by far, simply because of just how abstract some of the patterns were. I just remember having this massive list of patterns and things to look out for, and none of it was really making sense until towards the end. The abstract reasoning subtest consists of 50 questions in just 12 minutes, which in my opinion is insanely time pressured. The first thing you want to keep in mind is it is 50 questions, but at the same time, the questions usually come in sets of 5. So you will have one sample image where you have to find a pattern from it, and then the next 5 questions are going to correspond to that sample image. So the timing isn't as atrocious as it may seem. Essentially, what I would recommend you do and what I remember doing is spend about 40 seconds figuring out what the pattern is. How you do this, I'm going to talk about in a couple minutes. And then with the other 15 to 20 seconds you have for that set of 5 questions, remember it's about 1 minute per set of 5 questions, you want to then just quickly answer the multiple choice questions. Now, similar to the verbal reasoning section, you may have to skip and guess some questions, but I would definitely recommend that you guys exercise a bit of caution with doing this, just because one image set can correspond to up to 5 questions. So you don't want to be guessing half of the subtest, because remember, there's only 50 questions. If you're guessing multiple sets of 5 questions, each time you're guessing a tenth of that subtest, which is not the best thing in the world. But again, I wouldn't stress too much. So now in terms of figuring out the rule for a given image, say for the example I have up on the screen, what you want to do is you want to look at set A, see if you can pick out anything that stands out. Look at set B, see if you can pick out anything that stands out, and see if you can put together a rule for each set. So what this means is essentially, can you find one common thing or a group of common features that are exclusive to either set A or set B? Now, one important thing you want to keep in mind is for something to count as a rule, it needs to be in every single member of the set. So for example, let's say in set A, 6 of the boxes have a white square and one of them has a black square. White squares cannot be the rule for set A and vice versa. So another thing I want to say just about figuring out rules is learn one of the big UCAT mnemonics. I remember there was a bunch that I learned. A simple one I have up on screen right now is just scans. But essentially, you want to first look for the most obvious and common things, as more often than not, the pattern is something on the more obvious side. So once you've systematically gone through these common features, you then want to see if you can create a pattern out of it. And if you can't immediately find a pattern within 40 seconds, in that case, I would definitely recommend guessing the question and coming back to it if you have time at the end. Now, another really important thing to remember with the rule is these are multiple choice questions. Your aim is to answer the question that you are given and get it correct. So your rule doesn't need to necessarily be perfect. As long as you can find a rough rule that seems to help you answer the question, you don't have much time to dwell, just go with it. I remember doing this in my practice mocks and seeming to do alright by doing that. So to end the video, I'm going to talk to you guys a bit about the different question types that can come up in the UCAT AR subtest. So the first question type that can come up is sequence completion. You'll have a sequence of images and you will be asked to pick the image out of a bunch of options which would complete that sequence. So essentially you have to find what rule the sequence is using the techniques I briefly discussed just before. The next question type you can have is where you have two sets of images, set A and set B, which each have their own rule, and then you have to choose whether a sample image belongs to set A, set B, or neither. So the next question type you can have, kind of similar to the last one, is where you have a set of images with a rule, and in the question you have another set of images, and you have to pick out of your options which image is going to correspond to the set you've been given in the original sample. And the final type of question you get in the UCAT AR subtest, which I personally found the easiest, was A is to B as C is to question mark type questions. So this is essentially where you have a line of logic that links to images, and you have to apply that to a second image by choosing which image from a list of either 4 or 5 corresponds to the image within the question. So in terms of question types, there's not a massive amount of diversity, but again, the different questions do require different techniques, but it's working on the same basic principle. You have to find the rule that applies to a certain set of images. So yeah, there you have it. That is my top tips for UCAT Abstract Reasoning. I hope you guys find this video helpful, and if you're applying to medicine this year, I would highly recommend subscribing to my channel, as I've got tons more UCAT advice as well as BMAT and just general medical application advice coming out soon. Thank you for watching.